Hey guys, I didn't feel like I did a very good job of introducing Lightroom to you the other day, so I thought that maybe I would make a little video and I could do a better job of it. All right, let's make your catalog. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and open up Lightroom. Go ahead and click on File in the menu bar and New Catalog. The catalog will be a group of files saved into one folder. Now you could save them to the hard drive, but that would be silly because then anyone could alter or delete your photos or the catalog itself. Instead, I want you to save your catalog to your memory card. This means that in order to edit your photos, you will need to have your memory card plugged into the computer. Anytime you need to edit them, you have to have the memory card. So you may want to create a folder that you keep your catalog files in. Perhaps you could name it, I don't know, maybe catalog. Oh, that was the wrong one. All right, so if we go to, I'm going to find my memory card. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it catalog. And I will click on open. All right, before you can create it, you have to type a name for it. What should I name my catalog? Let's name it Mr. K. Merk. For this one, I'm going to skip this time. So I'll skip. Lightroom will close and then reopen using the new catalog. Because it's brand spanking new, your catalog is currently empty, so you won't see any photos yet. Before we get to that, let me point out a few things on this screen right here. In the top right here, you will see the main sections of Lightroom right here. These are called its modules. Typically, you'll only work with the first two, Library and Develop. Library is where you go to navigate to the group of photos that you want to edit, as well as to manage folders and files if you need to. So right now, we're on the Library module. The develop module is where you will go to get ice cream. Just checking to see if you're still with me. No, obviously the develop module is where you will go to edit your photos. Each of the two modules will look essentially the same, but we'll have different options to the right and the left in this area here or in this area here. Let's start with the library module. First and foremost, let's import some photos. So on the bottom left here, find the button that says import. You're going to import the raw files that you took in the last free shoot assignment. So to do this, click on the import button at the bottom left of the screen. And get ready, this part can be a doozy. A window will open. On the left side, you'll see a section called Source. This is where all the memory cards and hard drives that you're able to import from are listed. In the center, you should see all of your photos. By default, they have a check next to them. Check only the ones that you want to import for the free shoot. If you don't feel like you can pick the best ones out yet, then that's fine. Feel free to just import all of them and we'll sort through them. I'll show you how to sort through them in a minute. That's it for the center of the screen. Now let's turn our attention to the right side of the import window. If you expand destination, at the very top here you will see a little checkbox that says Into Subfolder. Directly beneath that checkbox you will see a drop-down menu. Make sure that the Into One Folder option is selected here. Below that you'll see a list once again of all the devices and hard drives that are available to save to on your computer. And just like you did with your catalog, I want you to import your pictures to your memory card. At the very least, I would suggest creating an images folder to import your photos to. At least that way they'll be distinguished from your Canon 101, 102 folders. If you don't have one yet, an images folder, that is, you can right-click under where you selected your memory card. So maybe right in here or so. No, not there. And go to Create New Folder. And if you look, it'll be a little bit different for you in Finder, but you'll want to make sure that you're in the root of your memory card. Create a new folder. So I will select New Folder and then Images, and it'll create an Images. And then inside of that, you can select Folder. Finally, once you've done all of that and you have your pictures checked, the ones that you want to import, and you have your folder selected that you want to import to, you can click on Import. You'll be returned to the main screen of your library module, but now your pictures will start to show up here in the center. If you imported a lot of photos at once, it may take a while to populate. This one was pretty fast because I only had one raw file that I was importing, so yours might take a little bit longer. But if it is taking a long time, you're not sure what the program's doing, if you look up in this top left corner here while it's importing, or while it's doing anything that's taking a long time, you'll see some progress bars up here so you can kind of keep track and know that it is not frozen, it is just working hard on your behalf. On the left side of the screen here, you should see a section called Folders. This is how you're going to navigate through the pictures that you have already imported. So remember, I created a folder on my memory card called 09 September 13. I didn't rename it, 6 months old, so that's not very descriptive or accurate. If you ever want to do anything with these folders, if you ever want to modify them or create a new one or delete a folder, you can do everything right over here under the folders section. I would just right click on this and I could rename it real quick. I would name this to something more appropriate like Lightroom tutorial, and then click on save, and it changes that folder name for me. It'll also change it on the memory card itself, not just in Lightroom here. Your photos should be located under your memory card in whatever folder or folders you saved them to. And we are done with the first part. Now I know that may have seemed like a lot, but the next time you do it, all of that will probably take you less than a minute. So fret not, my friends. All right, before we move on to the develop module, let's assume that maybe you don't want to keep all the photos you just imported. Like maybe I don't want 2 of these here, or maybe I don't want this one right here that's super overexposed. Maybe, as I often do, you imported everything on your memory card with plans to sort through them all after the import. That's fine. I do that all the time. At the bottom of the screen right here, you should see sort of a horizontal list view of all the photos that are currently in the folder that you have selected. If you have a photo selected and you decide you do not want to keep that photo, you can press the X key. Pressing the X key marks the photo as rejected. It does not immediately delete your picture though, so it's important to remember that. It's not deleted, it's just marked as I don't want you anymore. I reject you. If you accidentally reject a photo that you want to keep, you can click on the P key for pick. So let's go through some of these. If I double click on this, I can see them a little better, so I know which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to get rid of. Here's a cool thing also. If you have the caps lock key on, when you click on either X or P, it will automatically move you to the next image. If you don't have the caps lock key on, and I pick this one, I press P to pick this one, like I want to keep it, it will just say flag as pick. So it tells me that it picked it, but it does not move on to the next image. If I have my caps lock on though, and I press P, then it will flag that one as picked and move on to my next one. So here's a lovely view of me in college with some friends. See if you can guess which one is me. Let's say I don't want to keep this one, so I will press X. So it says set as rejected. And this one's a fun one, so we'll keep this one. We'll say P. This one's kind of serious and a little bit more boring, so I'll reject that one. So press X. I like this one. This one's fun. This guy was my mentor in my late high school days. So we'll pick that one. Here's another college. We'll pick that one. That one's from Chuck E. Cheese. But look, somebody's head got cut off, so we'll say, nope, we don't want to keep that one. Let's press X, reject that one. Whoo, that guy's a little pudgy. Let's X that one. That's a little overexposed. I don't like that one very much, so we'll X that. There's my homecoming date. My first girlfriend, by the way. And we'll press P and pick that. All right. So if we go back to our grid view, you can see a bunch of different options down here. If I click on this, it will go back to my grid view, so I can see the ones that I pressed X on will have a little flag with an X in the top corner. It says this photo is rejected. They'll also be kind of grayed out, so they're easy to spot. Once you've gone through them all, the easy way to delete those pictures that you rejected is by holding down Command and pressing the delete key. So Command and delete. So you have 3 options here. The first one is delete from disk. If you click on delete from disk, it will remove the photo from your catalog and it will delete the actual photo file from your memory card. Usually that's what you want to do. If you click on remove, the second button there, remove will only remove the photo from the catalog. It will not actually delete the photo file. So think of your catalog as kind of like a map of your photos. If you remove it from the map, it doesn't remove the photo itself. It just means that you will not be able to find that photo very easily anymore. Lightroom won't be able to see it anymore. So usually that's not something that you want. That's going to mean that you have a bunch of photos that are taking up space that you are kind of invisible to Lightroom, that you won't be able to see anyway. So that's kind of pointless. So you will click on delete from disk, and it will delete those rejected photos and keep the ones that you had flagged as picked. If you want to delete photos that you've imported, don't just find them on the memory card through Finder, delete the files. Lightroom will still list them in your catalog, but will flag the files as missing, which can be a headache. The same goes for moving the files around. If you need to relocate files, if you want to cut and paste them, move them to a different folder, do it through the folder section in the library module over here. I think we're finally ready to develop. This is the fun part. Click on the develop module. So I'm going to go to the top right here, click on develop. On the left, you'll see a section called presets. Let's talk about the left section first. So over here, actually above that, we have the navigator section. Inside the navigator, you see a small preview. If you mouse over any other images, you can quickly see sort of a slightly larger version of them without actually clicking on them. And beneath that, you'll see your presets. Think of these like the filters on Instagram or VSCO. When you click on one of these filters, it will automatically edit your picture to that preset. When you click on a preset, you'll notice the picture change, and you'll also notice that all the editing options on the right side of the screen over here will move around and change. This means that even if you click on a preset, so let's say I click on this one right here, first black and white preset in my list, you'll see that my settings change over here. What that also means is that if I don't like this, I can use my preset still, but modify the settings a little bit if I like. Now, onto the meat of the develop module. On the right side of the screen, you'll see an overwhelming number of options. We're going to go over some of my favorites and some of the ones that I think are the most important. See that crazy looking graph at the top? That's called your histogram. Ignore that for now. You don't need it. Not that it isn't important, but it's a little beyond our scope for the moment. So look below that and you'll see a row of symbols right here. The only one that you really need to worry about at the moment, at least, is the first one. This is the crop overlay. When you click on that, you'll see a few options appear over here on the right side. Better than clicking on this symbol, however, is knowing the shortcut for cropping in Lightroom, which is simply the R key. If I press the R key, I can turn on the crop mode and turn off the crop mode. All right, so when you do that, you'll see a thirds grid appear. Looks like your rule of thirds, so you can crop according to your rule of thirds if you like to. Here you can freely drag the handles around to crop however you like, or you can click on the lock on the right side of the screen over here. You can unlock and lock it, and it will keep your aspect ratio the same as the original, which is almost always a good idea. You can still switch it between portrait like this and landscape like this, but you usually want to keep that aspect ratio because that's pretty standard for photos, especially if you ever plan on framing a photo or anything like that. Frames come in standard sizes as well. If you need to rotate a picture altogether, you can either right click on the picture and go to the transform menu and say rotate left or rotate right. Or the shortcut for that, since we love our shortcuts, would be to hold the command key and then use the bracket keys, and it will quickly, without having to go through any menus, rotate either left or right. All right, moving on. Look back at the right side of the screen. The first section is called the basic section. Guess what's in here? No, go ahead, guess. Oh, you're so smart. That's right, your basic tools and adjustments. If it isn't expanded, click on the basic section to expand it and see all of your options. These are mostly important, so let's talk about each one a little bit. First, you have the white balance settings. Remember, the white balance has to do with the warmth or coolness of your photo. I would say that this particular photo, for example, is probably a little warmer toned. If you look, the white, what is supposed to be pure white, the paper in the background, is actually kind of a yellowish tint to it. One of the cool things about RAW files is that while it does apply the white balance settings to your pictures when you actually take the picture on the camera, you can have it set to whatever, fluorescent or incandescent or sunlight or shade or cloudiness or whatever. When you edit it, you can still switch that. You can totally change that setting as if you had shot it that way on the camera. So usually what I will do if I see that my white balance is off a little bit, I will let Lightroom try and decide. So I will go to next to where it says white balance here. I'll click on as shot. As shot means how it was in the camera. I'll click on auto and I'll let let Lightroom do it. So you can see that gives me actually a much better picture, better looking whites at least, not necessarily a good picture right in here, a much better looking picture as far as the whites go. It does look a little bit blue maybe, but if I feel that way about a picture, usually, especially when I'm doing people, I will give it a warm tone anyway. So I can use my temp slider down here to just turn it up a little bit and give it a little bit of yellow. All right, below that are the tone settings. Sometimes I just like to start out by using auto and seeing what the program thinks the picture needs. So I will find auto right here. It says next to tone. I'll click on that and give it a second, and holy cow, that way overexposed it. It's usually a good idea to start with auto and just to see what it does. Give you an idea, especially if you don't have any real idea of what you should do to the picture. Many times I won't totally agree with the stupid program, stupid conclusion, as in this case, so I'll modify some of the settings after I've clicked on auto. You can see we'll start here with exposure and contrast. You should know by now what exposure does. Exposure will either brighten or darken your entire picture. This distinction becomes more important, the fact that it's the entire picture when we talk about some of the sliders below here. But for now, just know that exposure affects, again, the entire picture. So if I move that around, you can see the entire picture either brightens or darkens. This is usually, like I said, an important distinction in that some areas of your picture may need to be brightened and some may not need to be brightened. Like the edges out here, these are pretty dark. The background was pretty dark. But if I brighten the picture up enough to expose those correctly, then that means that the subject, or maybe just any other area of my picture that might have been good to begin with, is going to be overexposed. So using the exposure to kind of expose for everything is not usually the best idea. All right. Likewise, contrast will affect your whole picture. It'll make all of your dark values darker and all of your bright values brighter. It can be a little intense. Or if you turn it all the way down, it can be a little unintense, whatever the opposite of intense is. A little boring, a little drab. You can see it. I'm actually going to reset contrast. I don't want to mess with contrast because that didn't look very good. So I'll go down to the next 4 sliders. The next 4 sliders are actually pretty cool. Highlights will control only the brightest values in your picture. Will not affect values that are considered darker values. So maybe you have some parts of your picture that are way overexposed, but you like the detail and richness in your shadows. You don't want to mess with the shadows. If you use the exposure slider to correct the overexposure, it would also darken the shadows even further, like we saw before, possibly losing detail in those shadows. If you use the highlight slider, however, you can fix only the overexposed parts of the picture. So let's click on auto again. So we have these sections well exposed out here now, not nearly as dark. But this section right here is way overexposed. If I wanted to keep all of this stuff as it is, but I didn't want this part to be overexposed, I can take my highlights section here and it will only modify those sections of those parts of my photo that are too bright, that are overexposed. So if I move that, we'll say all the way down, in this case we're at -100 now, you can see I bring some of the detail back in, especially sort of here in the shoulder and in that gigantic wrinkled forehead. Well, the opposite goes for the shadow slider. It will only affect the darker parts of the picture. Maybe they're too dark. Use the slider to brighten just your shadows and bring some detail back, or you can darken the shadows and lose some more detail if you want. So this will only affect the areas of the photo that are dark. Right now, my auto setting had turned my shadows up a little bit and brightened my shadows. So if I wanted to brighten them even more, I could do that. Again, it doesn't look very good when you do that, especially if you go all the way up. Usually you want to use some moderation. But if I wanted to darken just the shadows, but leave what I just changed with my highlights alone, I can use my shadows slider to modify just the dark areas. The whites and black sliders work essentially the same way, except that they are more extreme and will only affect values in your photos that are either pure white or almost there, or pure black or almost pure black. So they modify a little bit more the extreme parts of that spectrum. So my pure whites, I can turn my pure whites down. There, we're getting a little weird here. All right, so we'll leave that there. These adjustments are where RAW files really shine next to JPEG. Because of all the extra information that is stored in the RAW file, you have a lot more latitude in correcting over and under exposure than you would with JPEG. If you shot in JPEG, and let's say that maybe the screen came out pure white in your photo, no matter what you did with these sliders, that screen back there would remain pure white. If it was a JPEG, you would not be able to recover any kind of detail or value. The last part of the basic section are the presence sliders. So down here we have 3 of those. There's clarity, vibrance, and saturation. The first one, clarity, is actually one of my favorites to use. If you move the clarity slider to the left, it will soften your image. So if we move this over to the left, you can see it softens both my colors and my edges just slightly. It can give it it starts to blend things together a little better. If you move it to the right, on the other hand, it will define your image more and harden the image. So if I move it all the way to the right, it makes for a totally different feel to the image. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It might be something that you want in your pictures. It's all about taste and style. If you want hard and gritty, then increase your clarity. If you want to emphasize maybe, let's say, a child's innocence and playfulness, decrease your clarity. You can give it sort of almost this sort of dreamy feeling. This setting, like most others, should be used in moderation, though you don't usually want to turn it all the way up to 100 or all the way down to negative 100. You can see it kind of goes a little too far with what it's doing there. You want to use it in moderation, use it subtly. The vibrance and saturation sliders are very similar and will control the richness of your colors. So you know, if you want to desaturate your image, would just be to turn your saturation all the way down. You can make it black and white. Otherwise, there's also a black and white button up here. So you can click on black and white and it'll change that for you. You can always go back to color. Another beautiful thing about RAW, you can switch between black and white and color and always go back to either one or the other very easily. I could probably stop here with the editing, even though there's a ton more that you can do with it. But I'll show you one more thing that is one of my favorite features of Lightroom. I've always hated that there is not an easy way to add a vignette in Photoshop. A vignette is where you can either darken or brighten the edges and corners of a picture to help draw focus towards the center. Lightroom has a super easy way to do that. On the right side, look for the effects section. So it's going to be towards the bottom. Usually I think it's the second to last section right here. Go to effects and I'll click on that to expand it. The first slider that you see there is amount. Moving this slider to the left will quickly add a dark vignette to your photo. So if I move it to the left side, you can see it darkens the edges of my picture. You can go, again, super extreme, not usually recommended. Moving it to the right, on the other hand, will add a brighter vignette to my picture. Again, different strokes for different folks. Sometimes you might want the lighter one, sometimes you might want the darker one, depending, again, on the feeling that you want to lend to your photo. Once again, it's important to use subtlety. Typically, when editing, it's better to do so without the viewer knowing or noticing that it was edited. I find that a vignette, usually around -14, strikes my fancy perfectly. All right, well, that was a lot of information. We have one final thing to go over, though. You've made all these wonderful edits in Lightroom now. As you've changed every little thing, Lightroom has saved those changes automatically, which is a beautiful thing. However, you still only have raw images. In order to do much with your photos, they need to be converted to a more common format, which would be JPEG. So let's go ahead and do that. So go back to your library module. I'm going to click on library. Next to the import button, you will see its friend, the export button, right here. Highlight the pictures that you want to export. You can click on one, or you can hold Command to click on multiple ones individually if you want to. Or if you want to export all of them, easiest thing to do is just press Command A, and it will select all of them automatically. Once you've done that, give the export button some love. You'll see a fun new window pop up, so I'll click on Export. Exporting is basically like clicking File, Save As, but it does it for a bunch of photos at the same time. In this window, the first section is the export location. You'll usually want to change the first dropdown to specific folder. Then a Choose button will appear beneath the dropdown, and you can pick where you want to save your exports to. This part is up to you. You may not want to keep a JPEG version and a RAW version of your photos on your memory card. Might not be a good idea. That could eat up a lot of space very fast. Plus, you can always open up Lightroom and quickly export a new JPEG if you want one. So I would suggest picking anywhere that you would like to export the photos. Doesn't matter as long as you know where you're exporting it to. But then just deleting them after you've done whatever you need to, whether it's uploading to the website or printing them. So for now, I would choose Final Images, and then I'll go to Finals, because that's where I like to put them. If you want to, you can put them in a subfolder. Doesn't matter. If you're going to do that, if you're going to delete your final ones afterwards, you don't want to add them to the catalog. Just it's not necessary. Existing folders, ask what to do. All right, that's fine. File naming, you can ignore file naming unless you really want to rename all of your files. It's up to you. File settings. Video, you don't need to pay attention to video. File settings is the next one you want to look at. You want to make sure that image format chosen is JPEG. You want to save them as JPEGs. And you want to make sure your quality is turned all the way up to 100. Color space, leave it however it is. You don't want to limit your file size. The next window down is image sizing right here. You want to make sure it does not say resize to fit, you do not want to check that box. Your resolution can be, well, there's a lot to say about resolution. I would suggest for now just do 200 pixels per inch. And why not? You can click on sharpen for screen. Finally, you can leave probably the rest of the stuff alone and click on export whenever you're ready. You'll see once you click on export, a progress bar will appear at the top left. So it says exporting 5 files. Depending on where you're saving it to, if it's a hard drive or a memory card, it might take longer, it might take not as long, or how many files you're exporting. All right, when that's done, then you're done. So that is Lightroom in a nutshell, albeit a very large nutshell. Thanks for sticking all the way through to the end with me. If you have any questions at this point or ever need any help with Lightroom, feel free to ask. Look forward to more of these lovely tutorials in the future. Mr. K out.